Hello, Date with Destiny. It is a month since we met each other in West Palm Beach, and so I wanted to come live as I was reviewing my day one stuff and just share with you what my 3 takeaways were from day one. And I've been to Date with Destiny twice, so I looked at my notebooks from last year and from this year, and it was really cool to see the crossover of how my takeaways were kind of similar both years. So my first takeaway, which, by the way, if you guys haven't done this, haven't looked back at your manuals, get them out. Super good, especially now that we're a month out. Hey, Mindy. So the first one is about problems. Tony talks a lot about problems on day one specifically, right? He talks about how problems are gifts from God to help us grow. Problems are what allow us to expand our identity. Problems are the things that are there for a reason, right? And he also shares that usually our biggest problem is that we don't expect to have any problems, right? And I totally fall into that category. I'm like, oh yeah, it's gonna be no problem. Like, no problems here, right? So of course we have to anticipate them. And on the flip side, he shares that problems are the greatest addiction there is today, right? Hey, Todd. Because problems, right, feed a lot of our needs, right? If we're going through a problem, feeds a lot of our needs. So I'm always kind of playing between these two, like, I guess polarities that I think of like, there are no problems, and like, let me find a problem, because a problem will bring me my needs, right? So you gotta kind of find that middle point of where it feels good, where you can anticipate, but like not expect problems, if that makes sense. And I love what he says about problems and leaders. So he said this last year, I'm not sure if he said it at the 2018 Date with Destiny. He said, leaders love problems. Leaders love problems because it's our job to solve problems. That's who we are. And so now I think about every time I hit, sorry guys, my mom called. I'm like, yeah, no worries, problems, got it. I'm a leader, I can handle this, I can tackle this. Which brings me to my second takeaway from day one, which is identity. So identity is the strongest force in the human personality, right? People will do anything that they can to stay congruent with their identity. And your identity is basically like who you believe yourself to be. Okay, your identity. And he said that people don't get their goals, they get their identity. So we always have to be expanding our identity and then conditioning it, which is cool because that's what we did together in Florida, right? We expanded our identity. We decided who we were going to be. We saw the truth, right? We expanded it. And so now it's our job to condition it. So that's really how we're living, breathing, acting every single day. And then when things come up, when problems come up, when the unexpected comes up, we're going to still live in congruence with that identity, this new identity we've decided for ourselves. I'll share like one piece of my identity which is super strong is what Mindy just said, right? Leadership. Like, I don't know what it is, my parents, my upbringing, just how my childhood, everything led me to this place of knowing that leadership is a massive, incredible part of my identity. So it's like my tipping point, you know, and like the leverage, right? Like the pain and pleasure to make change a must. That's what leverage is. So there's questions like, what's it going to cost me, right, to make the pain, or like, what am I going to gain from this? Like, that's the pleasure. So we always have to use pain and pleasure. You guys know that. For me, if I can see how this is incongruent with my identity of leadership, I can pretty much change anything. So if you can find a really positive piece of your identity that can help you create change, that's huge right now. Like, because it's the new year and we're trying to meet all these goals, and that's awesome, and you made these goals and you expanded your identity, which is super cool because now you can get those 4 goals you set. But if you don't condition it, will you get the goals? Will you have an expanded identity? I don't know. Probably not. So the conditioning piece is hugely, hugely important. But for me, I realized, like, even to get myself to do the conditioning, to stand in front of the vision board every day, to say the incantations every day, to make decisions with a new primary question every day, like all of those little tiny things that make that add up, right? That compounding effect. I can make myself do them if I see how it is in congruence with my identity as leader. So I'm curious to know, what's your sticking point if you have one? Or I guess your tipping point. What's that tipping point for you that can get you to do anything? And my third thing, you guys, Sage said this. Maybe Tony did, but they were talking a lot about it day one, which is separation equals suffering. And I've been to relationships day before, and I've been a life mastery relationships day before, and I've been to a few relationships days, you guys, and it was just such a simple key takeaway that I'd never heard before. Maybe I had heard, but it hadn't stuck. Separation equals suffering. And she said something so beautiful, I added it to my relationship vision, which is that, like, my partner is a gift from God. It's a child of God that he gave me to love. It's not his job to do anything for me. It's not his job to be anything for me, right? Like, I was given this gift that I get to take care of, that I get to nourish and nurture, and that's super feminine, okay? Nourish and nurturing, super feminine, but for me, that's what makes sense. And whenever I see something in him, sorry, there's a plane. I don't know if it's loud for you. Pattern interrupt. When I see something in him that I feel resistance to, it's usually something in me, right? And we see this so many times. I see it really clearly in my friends, especially in my girlfriends. For some reason, I have created this awareness around that, but I hadn't truly created an awareness around that in my partnerships before, my intimate partnerships. So that was really huge for me, like separation equals suffering, and I've started to realize my patterns that it's usually more suffering when I separate rather than if I'm just feeling him separate. If that makes sense. When I pull back, it does more harm to me than if I just notice him pulling back and move toward him. Okay? And one last tip, you guys, because I was reading through these and it just kept coming up, the mind, right? Tony's idea of the mind. And I want to share with you my top 2 resources for where I learned about the mind. Okay? Because this whole concept of the mind is kind of hard, kind of similar, or kind of hard, kind of easy. It just depends on where you're at. And I had a lot of trouble with it. I didn't fucking get it for a long time. So these 2 things really helped me. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill and The Autobiography of a Yogi by Yogananda. It's a very, like, spiritually rich text. So really good to read. I'm going to be coming live to you guys all week, sharing my top tips or my top takeaways from day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. I would love if you held me accountable. And why don't you share with us below in a comment or a video of your own, what were your top takeaways from day 1? Because we're a whole month out, y'all. A whole month out. Pretty cool stuff. Mindy, the second book was Autobiography of a Yogi. Autobiography of a Yogi. I'll get an Amazon link for you guys. Have a great day. Bye, friends.